What did you do to yourself, Glenn?
Well, good evening. My name is Steve Worthington. I'm the mayor for the city of University Place, and I'm calling the regular meeting of the University Place City Council to order for Monday, April 18th, 2022. And let's start with a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Keel,
Councilmember Keel, present.
Councilmember Wood, Councilmember McCluskey, Councilmember, your microphone, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Councilmember McCluskey is here.
Councilmember Fleming,
Councilmember Fleming here.
Councilmember Belisi,
Councilmember Belisi here.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa, and Mayor Worthington.
And Mayor Worthington is here. And let's see, Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa has requested to be excused this evening. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Figueroa.
Councilmember Keel, I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any objections to providing excused absence? I don't see any objections, and we'll note it as an excused absence. I understand that Councilmember Wood was here just a moment ago, but has a technical issue. I'm going to just give him a little more time to come and join into the meeting. But if that doesn't happen, we'll deal with the absence question a little bit later. So, Councilmember McCluskey, it's your turn for us to help basically to lead the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Those who would like to stand, please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those who are standing, please take your seat.
Thank you. Let's see, and I'm ready for a motion to approve the agenda for this evening. Is there such a motion?
Councilmember Belisi, motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Councilmember Keel, I second.
Thank you. And so we have a motion and a second to approve this evening's agenda as distributed. Are there any objections from council members in approving that? Seeing none, excuse me, I'll declare the motion approved unanimously. That brings us to our presentations for this evening. And we're going to start that with an Arbor Day presentation, proclamation, I should say. And I believe that Jack Eklund is going to be receiving that for us as in his role as the Parks Department, as our interim director there. And the fact is, I'm looking for that proclamation on my screen, which I had queued up here. Now it's just a question of finding a where. Okay, well, excuse me as I have to get that screen back up, and it's a night of gremlins, I think, that are in the machine.
Mayor Worthington, would you like me to share it?
Thank you, that would be perfect. Thank you. Now, if we could make that a little larger, I might be able to read that. Wonderful. Thank you, Linda. So, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting trees. And whereas the holiday called Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the corrosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, provide oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of businesses and business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they're planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas citizens all are encouraged to support efforts to protect our trees and to support our city's urban forestry program, and to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations. Now, therefore, the City Council, the City of University Place, does hereby recognize and support Saturday, April 23rd, 2022, to be Arbor Day in the City of University Place. Proclaimed by the City Council of the City of University Place, Washington on April 18th, 2022. And to receive that, we have our Interim Parks Director. And Jeff, thank you for being here, and thank you for helping us celebrate Arbor Day. And of course, all of this is leading up to something that's in particular. Oh, wait, that's our next proclamation. We'll talk about that. But all right, great.
That's
thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just as you have hinted a little bit, they'll lead into our next one, but we will be in support of Arbor Day planting a sunset maple this Saturday at Paradise Pond as part of Parks Appreciation Day. So I think that's enough said for that, and I'll let you lead on to the next one.
Great, perfect. Thank you, sir. Great. Linda, I'm going to ask for your help again to get up the next proclamation, which happens to be about Parks Appreciation Day and all. So if you could share a screen for me one more time.
Give me 1 second.
Sure. And with us this evening, we have the chair of our Parks Commissions, Stacy McLean. And thank you, Chair, for being with us. I'm glad to have you join us, and we'll be receiving your proclamation, and perhaps you'll have a few words you'd like to share as we, when we get done presenting that. So, whereas parks, playgrounds, and nature trails and open space make communities attractive and desirable places to live, work, play, and visit. And whereas parks are a place where people can reflect and recognize or socialize, recreate and socialize, places where everyone is welcome and a place that builds community. And whereas parks, greenways, and open space provide a welcome respite from fast-paced, high-tech lifestyle, while protecting and preserving our natural environment. And whereas numerous jurisdictions, cities, and organizations have joined together to create an event that encourages citizens to celebrate the value and enhance quality of life that parks bring to our communities. And whereas citizens of all ages have pledged to volunteer their time to clean up and beautify parks and open space throughout Pierce County, Washington on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. Now, therefore, the City Council, the City of University Place, does hereby recognize and support Saturday, April 23rd, 2022, and proclaim it to be Parks Appreciation Day, proclaimed by the City Council of the City of University Place, Washington, on April 18th, 2022. And Chair McLean, thank you for being here. Could you, is there anything you'd like to add?
Oh, it's just our very great pleasure to go ahead and to receive this, and I want to say thank you for the Parks Advisory Committee and all those who have volunteered, and we're very excited for the Parks Appreciation Day coming up on April 23rd, Saturday, at Paradise Pond, and hopefully we can get a lot of work done there. So we're very happy with cooperating with the city and exciting for the future of parks.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate your help there. Yes, indeed. And so let's see, I think that starts about 9 o'clock or so, and the public's welcome to come, bring gloves, bring a shovel, and spend some time beautifying the park. So that's great. And Council, we have something going on the 23rd we'll be talking about, but I think we start at 10, and Parks Appreciation Day, I think, starts at 9. So there's a little time to come in Paradise Pond if you can fit that in your morning schedule. Let's see. So with that, that concludes our presentations, but it does bring us to public comments. And I understand we have received a letter from the public. It's been distributed to council. This is from, from CORE, and in regards to a grant application that the city is going to be talking about a little later on in this meeting, and a support for that application. I also understand, I believe that's been distributed to the council members. If the public, members of the public would like to provide a comment, they may do that by email. And we have our, I think, our contact information coming up on our screen in just a little bit. We will also have the email address is Janita. Excuse me, and there it is on the bottom. You'll also see our meeting ID numbers, so you can call in or use your computer, and using the computer, use the raise hand function, turn on your camera when you're directed to do so, and use the microphone to speak. And then you can also, as I mentioned, call in. Press *5 to raise your hand, and the mayor or our city clerk will call on you. Either the city clerk will call on you, and press *6 to unmute your phone. We do have some people in the audience this evening, and at the city council chambers. So, and I wanted to ask the city clerk to help us with that process and initiate our public comment, while we're seeing if anyone else will join us electronically.
Yes, Mayor. The first individual on our sign-up sheet is Chris Saunders. Chris, you want to come up to the table? You have 3 minutes for your public comment. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, City Council. I am Chris Saunders from 7786 40th Street West in the Colonial Apartments there. And I am here today to representing United for University Place. We are a group of, I don't know where to look. I guess I look here. Okay, thanks. We're an organization of about 80 organizations and individuals, and in partnership with Rotary and Kiwanis as well, we are a group of people interested in seeing an inclusive playground developed here in University Place. We have, tonight we are submitting 105 signed petitions for those individuals interested in the city developing a project like this. Rotary and Kiwanis have stepped forward to lead the charge on the project, as well as other individuals. And we are here tonight to share a little bit about what that project means, as well as request the City Council to help us locate in the city park somewhere a place where we can have a destination inclusive playground for all of our children in University Place and beyond in Pierce County. There are not many of these playgrounds that are available to particularly kids with mobility and cognitive issues. And so we're very excited to have a team of people like this working together to bring a project like this to University Place. There will be others tonight who will share the costs and the development issues, but I am starting out by simply saying one thing that we want everyone to know tonight is that there is an interested parties meeting set for May 3rd, that's Tuesday, at Curtis Junior High School Library at 7 p.m. to really help organize the project. We have organizations who have stepped forward and said we will be involved, but we want to make sure that anyone who's interested in this would be able to be part of it. So Jim Lineweaver is going to take the next position here, and he'll be sharing what the difference is between an inclusive playground and an access. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders. Appreciate that.
Next is Mr. Jim Lineweaver.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. It's good to be here. I'm Jim Lineweaver. I'm part of United for UP, and I'm also the Executive Director of Families Unlimited Network here in University Place. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about what an inclusive playground looks like and what it does. First off, there's accessibility versus inclusivity. In a survey conducted with parents across the country, 57% mistakenly believe that playgrounds are required by the Americans with Disability Act to include element designs for children with Down syndrome, sensory disorders, and visual and hearing impairments. In reality, current ADA requirements primarily require that playgrounds be accessible for those with wheelchair or mobility aid. What we need to do is go beyond accessibility and create playgrounds that are truly inclusive. Inclusive playgrounds are open and safe spaces carefully designed to promote play among children of differing abilities, ages, and communities. It gives children with and without any disabilities the same platform to play while breaking down barriers both physically and socially. The aim of inclusive play is to address the needs of the whole child. This is much more than just accessibility. Inclusive playgrounds eliminate physical and social barriers so that every child can have fun regardless of age or ability. They offer an abundance of sensory experiences for all. The true inclusive offered by such playgrounds encourages children, adults, and families to experience the benefit of playing together. They address the most common disabilities among children, which include physical, cognitive, communication, sensory, social, emotional, and behavioral. The common challenges for kids with disabilities include difficulty in moving playing materials or areas, difficulty in manipulating play objects and spaces in a meaningful and constructive way, problem in engaging in the socio-dramatic play at the highest levels, not being able to think abstractly, trouble in making other kids and adults understand their physical and mental limitations, not being able to express their desire to play, and not being able to show if they dislike an activity. The benefits of inclusive play include providing open spaces for children with different abilities to play together, encouraging engagement with peers of different capabilities. A well-designed inclusive playground welcomes whole families and communities. It invites those with various types of disabilities, their siblings, friends, and adults to interact and play together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lineweaver. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate you taking time to share those with us.
The next one on the list is Jill Guyan.
Hi, my name is Jill Guyan, and I live at 7710 54th Street West in University Place. My husband and I have been residents of University Place for 8.5 years. I want to thank you for your consideration of building an inclusive playground here. We are parents of 2 adult children. Our son has cerebral palsy, so we have 31 years of personal experience with raising a child with disabilities. Along with that, my husband and I are both recently retired educators. We have worked with hundreds of children and families who are impacted by disability. I also help to facilitate a special needs parent group that meets monthly through University Place Presbyterian Church. I can tell you that there is a great need for an inclusive playground here in this region. Inclusive playgrounds provide the community with a number of benefits. These benefits are not just exclusive to persons with disabilities, but for everyone. Inclusive play spaces are welcoming to children of all abilities that allow them to learn, play, and have fun together. They bring people in the community together. They allow children with disabilities to play with and alongside typically developing children. They allow adults with disabilities to interact with and play with the children in their care. They allow families and community members to enjoy watching children play and interacting with them. They can become a place that fosters multi-generational community where everyone can participate without barriers. Children and families impacted by disability live with a great deal of isolation. They often face many barriers that prevent them from participating easily in the regular things that the rest of us do and enjoy. These barriers go unnoticed by much of the population that never has to deal with them. Things like lack of curb cuts on sidewalks, stairs instead of ramps, narrow parking spaces that wheelchair vans cannot use, uneven ground cover, restroom stalls that cannot accommodate wheelchairs, and playground equipment that is unsafe for disabled children are just a few examples. When these barriers are removed, then everyone, regardless of ability, has a safe access and can more easily participate in play and having fun together. University Place is a welcoming and a thriving community. In addition, the addition of an inclusive playground would be an asset to our city. I thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Very good, and thank you, Ms. Guyan. Appreciate your comments as well.
The next is Blake Guyan.
Hello, University Place City Council. My name is Blake Guyan. I use a speech device to communicate. My address is 7710 Cirque Drive West, Apartment C in University Place. I came here tonight to express my support to build an inclusive playground in University Place. All children should be able to safely play at playgrounds. Play is really important for children's development. This issue is a personal passion of mine. When I was in elementary school, I was not physically able to play on the playground equipment. I could only watch as my friends had fun swinging on the monkey bars or climbing up stairs that had large gaps. On many playgrounds, the climbing bars and other toys are enclosed in a wooden barrier with wood chips which are inaccessible to wheelchair users. Having an inclusive playground would provide all children and their families a safe and welcoming place to play. I currently serve on the leadership team for the Eli's Park project that is building an inclusive park in Seattle. I would love to see an inclusive park built here in University Place so that all children, regardless of ability, can play together. Thank you for your consideration.
Mr. Guyan, thank you for your comments and appreciate that. And also, it sounds like you have some good expertise in your experiences in Seattle.
Next on the list is Mr. Ken Tribblehorn.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ken Tribblehorn. I'm with the University Place Fircrest Rotary Club here in University Place. Before I start, I want to give a special shout out and hello to some of my current Rotary members, Councilman Belishi and Councilman Fleming, and to a former member of ours, Al Wood. Al, it's good to see you again. I came this evening to not only promote this idea of an inclusive, accessible playground structure in University Place. As a personal anecdote, my youngest grandson is currently living with us, and he is autistic. He's 6 years old, and although he's a high-functioning young man, he still has severe limitations, and there just are so many things in our community that he can't interface with. This is an ideal opportunity to create those opportunities for him, much like his little classmates. I came this evening to talk a little bit about costs on some of these structures. Now, I haven't gotten too far into the process yet, but what I have learned in talking with some of the major manufacturers of these play structures is that the costs are going to range all over the place. It will depend on, in part, whether we partner up to an existing play structure in University Place at one of the facilities, or if we proceed with developing a new standalone structure. Costs for just the equipment can range literally all over the map. But if we were to augment an existing play structure, as an example, we probably would be talking in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. And what that would mean basically is, assuming an existing structure would be accessible already, the scope could include those kinds of things that provide sound and tactile and touch feel kinds of experiences for the kids, and hearing as well. If we were to build a standalone, inclusive, accessible structure, that means it not only has those elements for, as I mentioned, for hearing and seeing and touching, those kinds of experiences, but also accessibility for wheelchair-bound kids, not just for wheelchair-bound kids, but kids with mobility issues, which includes children that are wheelchair-bound. And so this means ramped facilities to gain access to elevated platforms. And it's at the elevated platforms where some of the other tactical experiences are available to the kids. So I'll cut briefly. If we were to do a standalone structure, we could expect the cost to be anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000. Again, it's based on the scope and scale and extent of the kinds of activities for kids at the structure. Thank you this evening. Good to see you all.
Mr. Triplehorn, thank you for sharing your information with us, and appreciated hearing that.
The next one
Do we
on the
have-
list is Mr. Brent Johnson.
Well, good evening, members of the council. My name is Brent Johnson, and for the last 32 years, I've lived at 4910 86th Avenue, Court West here in University Place, and actually been a lifelong resident of University Place. And as we have started talking about this, the need for an inclusive playground, and we've done some research, we have well, it's become evident to me that through my life here in University Place, we pride ourselves on the best schools, the best facilities, the best parks, and as we've looked around the area, there's some different examples of areas that have created an inclusive playground. Bainbridge Island, for instance, is one that's created one dedicated park and one that is inclusive to all children. And Gig Harbor, just across the bridge, has created one at the end of the harbor in their Crescent Park. Both of them have created this through a real joint effort, both public sponsorship, corporate, individuals getting involved, like the United for University Place. For instance, the Bainbridge, or the Gig Harbor Park, over 20 individual sponsors. 20 corporate sponsors. As I've done some research into what's out there, the grants that are available specifically for this type of park just seemed like they're begging to provide this type of facility for those individuals. It's also been interesting that it's really a destination location. I think Chris mentioned it in her opening comments that not only is an inclusive playground a playground for University Place, but it would definitely become the first one in the city of Tacoma, or Pierce County really even. And it would be a destination for all of those children and families to come and utilize and come to University Place and enjoy a playground that is inclusive to everybody. So I think there's a real swell of enthusiasm and support for this, and I hope you take it into consideration, and we look forward to helping you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate hearing your thoughts and comments as well.
Next, we have Mr. Steve Thorndale.
These are the petitions.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve Thorndale. My wife and I have lived in University Place for over 30 years. We live on 53rd Street West. I served on the Park Advisory Commission for 3 years from 2018 to 2020 and was chair of that commission during the final year and a half. Mr. Jack Eklund, Director of Engineering, Interim Park Director, informed the Park Advisory Commission last week that he would be providing council tonight a recommendation of the grants the city may apply for in the May 3rd state's RCO, or Recreation Conservation Office, grant application process. I believe he will also include information about the Park Advisory Commission's recommendation from their meeting last week on applying for funding to build a permanent restroom at Kern Apple Orchard Park. I believe the restroom would be a part of an amenity package to include a children's play area and additional park benches. I wish to endorse the adding of the restroom at Kern Apple Orchard Park. While on the PAC Commission, we supported this on a number of occasions. This included providing council with a formal recommendation on June 24th, 2019 that had been unanimously approved by PAC. On September 1st, 2019, I was invited to council to present our recommendation to engage in discussions with council. A favorite comment I remember from that night from one of the council members was, "I am surprised we are even having this conversation about a restroom. This should have been done 20 years ago." At that meeting, council supported further study of this recommendation. In March 2020, the pros plan report also recommended that a restroom be added to Kern Orchard Park. I also note that the original master plan for Kern Orchard Park included a permanent restroom. Timing in 2020, however, including the beginning of the pandemic, precluded the city from completing its due diligence in time to apply for funding during the 2020 RCO application process. The city now, in 2022, has the opportunity to apply for funding for a restroom at Kern Park. I understand that presenting the state with a project that includes multiple amenities at Kern Park will likely enhance the city's chances of being approved for a grant for Kern Park. This multiple amenity approach worked when the city applied in 2020 for Cirque Park to fund several park improvements, including skate park renovations, a paved walking trail, and a new children's playground. So in conclusion, I urge the council to approve a grant application this year that would allow UP the opportunity to get a permanent restroom at Kern Park. Our citizens deserve this additional amenity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thorndale. Appreciate your comments as well.
Mayor, it looks like we also have someone joining us online, Mr. Frank Erickson. Mr. Erickson, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't exactly know where to go for the meeting, so I'm a little bit late. I remember seeing something that the city said that they were going to start opening up for this meeting. So I went to the city council offices and they were closed. So you'll be happy to hear that they were pretty solidly closed. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I'm current president of our Rotary Club, local Rotary Club of University Place and Fircrest. Used to be called the Tacoma Narrows Rotary. So some of you may know it by that. We have, and I love the comments of the gentleman who was saying that as a child he couldn't play on the equipment that everybody else could play on. So he was left out, excluded. And I think that that's unforgivable. If we build a park anywhere in University Place, we have to include people who have mobility issues, who may have some mental issues, but certainly physical issues. We have to take those into account. And I think it's a shame on us if we don't do that. We have several opportunities, several places that have been mentioned by people, various people about as to where something like this could be placed. One of the biggest issues that I find, if it's someplace other than Cirque Park, is that there are access issues at the area on Elwood and 27th. There's really no parking. Parking could be available, but also there's no restroom. And that's a real issue. The other thing I'd like to mention is that if we build it, they will come, of course, but also others will come and there will be maintenance issues. I visited a handicap accessible park on South Hill, and there's been extensive vandalism over the last couple of years. Things are missing, things are broken, and they're not being fixed. That's probably a budget issue. I don't know. I haven't discussed it with the city of Puyallup, but we were talking about adding on to to what we raise to fund the inclusive park, to create some kind of an endowment to help the city pay for maintenance and upkeep and repair of the park. So I don't know what the legal hoops are that we would have to go through to get that done, but I think that people recognize that need to fund the ongoing maintenance. Kids have nothing right now. We give them something, and then it's taken away by vandals. That's not fair. We have to keep in mind that we have to maintain what we build. So the cost of building an accessible playground is just half of what we would have to raise, I'm sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. I appreciate those comments as well. And all. Certainly there's lots of good information here and obviously a good deal of interest in our community. Is there anyone else who wishes to make comment tonight? Any members of the public that wish to make comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay, well, very good. Emmy, is there, I can't see the room, so
Mayor,
I'm assuming.
is there anyone else who wants to make a comment? We don't have any more, anyone here anymore.
Very good. Well, thank you all. And council will take your comments into consideration. And we're going to move on to the next part of our agenda, which is approval of the consent agenda. And to get that ball rolling, I would like to get a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Mayor, this is Councilmember Belisi. I make a motion to approve.
It's Councilmember Keel, I second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there anyone, any council member who objects to the approval of the consent agenda? Any objections? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. We will then move on to our city manager report. Mr. Sugg, are you ready to go there?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, tonight I would like to have a grant update provided to you by our interim Parks Public Works Director and Engineering Director, Jack Eklund, who will run through and give you a preview of what is coming down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Let me I'm going to bring up on my screen let's see, report here. Right now, we are in the we have a flurry of grant activity going on, and so as Steve mentioned, we want to give you an update on some of the recent grant awards we have, recent grant applications we've made, and also a slew of applications that we're getting ready to make. And so let me pull this up from the beginning, and sorry, share. Son of a gun. All right, so I think you guys can see the slide there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right, so first of all, let's just start off with happy to report that we've been recently awarded 2 grants. From PSRC, we are being awarded $255,000 of contingency funds for the design of a roundabout at the intersection of Chambers Creek Road and 64th Street. This is up there by the funeral home and the bus barn in the county property there. You can see we have a little bit of a conceptual plan of that roundabout. There's an intersection that is currently at the PM peak hours is operating at a level of service F because of the long delays on the southern leg there. And a roundabout itself has been, we have an analysis that shows that'll update that level service A, so kind of eliminate any kind of delays there and still keep the general flow moving nicely. And so that's much needed, and we're excited about that. And it also gets our foot in the door for hopefully future opportunities for construction. The other grant we've been awarded recently is thanks to Senator Nobles and Representatives Levitt and Bernowski. We've been awarded $100,000 for the design of a new sewer line and roadway extension at 57th Avenue. This is up by Cirque Drive. Kind of just to the east of the Alameda roundabout. And this project will provide a lot much needed sewer access into this neighborhood, which could allow for additional growth there, and also will improve and provide critical traffic circulations, both for the residents as well as emergency vehicle providers, and also provide access to that park, the Creekside Park that currently the park we purchased from the Tacoma School District years ago that we can develop this road, that'll help us to develop that park in the future. So those are both exciting to be able to say we have some both for design, but get us moving, which kind of shifts into our recent applications. So our first 2 applications, we've submitted for 2 applications for federal funding through Representative Strickland's office. These both relate to the recent grant award, design awards. So we have submitted a grant for construction for that 57th Avenue sewer and roadway project, as well as construction for the Chambers Creek roundabout. And so it is a new process that this program is under, so we're not we don't have a lot of details on timing, but we are hopeful, and so those have been submitted. And then the third application we've submitted in the last few weeks have been for Olympic Brookside Storm Drainage Improvement Project. This is a project that will address some of the recent flooding we have down there in the extreme storm events, where we have had some flooding near the Olympic and Grandview roundabout, as well as down Brookside and downstream. So that one, we applied through the Pierce County Flood Control District, and so we're hopeful for both of those. And I would like to extend a thank you to both Lisa Patoric and David Swindell that helped put together these applications. And because as you're going to see, we have a full plate on upcoming stuff as well. So as much help as I can get, I appreciate. So that moves us on to our upcoming stuff. So right now, and I don't know why every major grant program wants to have the grants due at the same time, but that's the reality we're living in. But the first thing is the bridge program. There's a call for projects through WashDOT bridge program. This is a federal project, federal funding. This year, probably because of the additional funds emphasis from the infrastructure from the federal governments, it is a much larger pot of money than it has been in the past. It has a higher emphasis on bridge replacements and also has a higher emphasis on non-highway system bridges. So all of those add up to our advantage for looking for funding for replacing the Day Island Bridge, which is a functionally obsolete bridge and has a pretty low rating. And we've been working on trying to get some funding for this. So nice thing about this right now, this program, another thing is we estimate the bridge replacement at $15 million, which fits within the funding amount available. And also, because it's a non-highway system, there's not local match required. So typically, this program has about a 20% requirement. So it's nice that we don't need to come up with another $2 million to fund this. So anyway, so that one, we're excited for that, and that's that one's in the works. We also have our PSRC grants that are the countywide program, which we have been fairly successful on with a lot of the projects around. And so we have 5 projects we're targeting there. That's 67 Phase 1, which is improving mostly non-motorized improvements, the sidewalks, bike lanes, street lights. However, we will be doing some signalized improvements as well for that. The flashing left turn lanes, left turn arrows, and some pedestrian audible signals. That one we're going for construction funds. Also, we're looking at the Phase 2 of 67th, which is from 44th to Cirque. And this one we would do as a non-motorized project specific. So we kind of put our foot in 2 different pots of money there. That one, it would be sidewalks, street lights, bike lanes, planter strips, that sort of thing. We also would be looking at 2 smaller applications for 70th Avenue, finishing the sidewalks there between 19th and 27th Street. And this would be on the east side of the street, since we already have sidewalks on the west. And then 40th Street sidewalks, finishing those sidewalks between Drexler and 40th, which would be on the north side of the street there. And then finally, we're looking at an overlay project on Cirque Drive between 67th to Orchard. Coincidentally, the last time that project was overlaid was the very first project I worked on in the city. And so it held up for 23 years. So I'm happy to report that. It outlived its anticipated lifespan, but we are ready for a new one. So those are PSRC grants. And then finally, as a little bit talked about by some of the public comment, we are looking at an RCO application. We're looking to build on a previous application we did for the current Orchard. The previous grant cycle we applied for just a playground there. It did not rate well enough to receive funding. It was quite a bit below the funding level, and the feedback we received from Rep. RCO was we needed to add some oomph to the application. Particularly with additional park-wide benefits. One thing we've talked about is that could be looking at adding some additional benches and tables, doing some wetland mitigation with some interpretive and educational signage. And then the last thing that we're looking at is potential to add a restroom. Now, the RCO representatives have strongly recommended to make this a competitive application. They've basically said the two things that are the strongest in these type of applications are restrooms and parking. They feel we're okay with parking, so they really strongly recommend restrooms. They did note that if we did either a permanent restroom that would be ADA accessible or create an ADA, a location to put an ADA accessible honey bucket, both of those would help bolster the application. They did believe the permanent one would be a stronger element. We did present this at the last Parks Commission, and the Parks Commission all voted unanimously to recommend the permanent restroom be added to the project. Couple things to talk about on the restroom. What we're proposing at this location, because I know we've had some concerns in the past, how would we address safety and accessibility? So at this location, what we would do is have basically an identical restroom like we've put down there at the Sunset Terrace location. That is a 2-unit restroom. However, they are both a single occupancy, so you don't have an opportunity for someone to be like hiding in a certain corner of the space. So we're looking like kind of safety through design, where you have the individual units, you have the doors themselves. They're on a self-timered lock, and so they become secure at night. You don't have to worry about people you don't want getting in there at bad times. Another thing is because this would be located near the play structure itself, which is in that the northeast corner of the park, essentially. It would be at one of the most visible corners and visible locations at the park, which would also increase the safety and reduce potential for vandalism and that sort of thing, being so prominently located. The restroom we would also include as part of this project some additional ADA accessible, make sure we're updating our ramps from the parking areas with ADA accessible ramps, and also make sure there's a fully ADA accessible pathway to the proposed, if we had a restroom, to the proposed restroom. The match for this one, we do about a 50% match, but it would all come from our park impact fee. And so we're estimating this project, when we would add that in, to be about $250,000. One other thing to note is we did ask RCO about the potential of adding some additional irrigation for the park, because I know that's been a request in the past, and they were not super, they were not exuberant about that, I guess I could say. Some of the scoring criteria for these grants are about sustainability. However, I think there could be an opportunity to maybe, because of the historic nature of the trees, but also if we're bringing in water, if we do choose to do a restroom, if we're bringing water for that, we maybe could also have, as part of the project, the meter or size things up so we could accommodate a future irrigation system. So that's what we're looking at for those grants. A little bit of the dates coming up. As I said, it's close. Our bridge grant are due on the 29th of April. PSRC is due on May 2nd, and we have one whole day to do the RCO on May 3rd. So we will be busy. But that's my report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have, but that's what I got.
All right, Jack. Thank you, Steve. I know this was actually...
Mayor, that concludes the report for tonight for the city manager's report.
Yeah. You said that concluded your report, Steve? I think we had a little audio mix-up there.
That will take care of it. We did an extended report. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Jack, I know we have a full agenda, but there's a couple of key things there. First off, thank you for all the work. My goodness. The flow of grant applications you have underway to keep our community growing and and just getting better. And you and your team have done a great job with that already, but it seems like this is particularly the case. And I don't know, do you need like another computer so you can have one for each hand? Or anyhow, be able to turn these things out? I don't know how you're doing it, but it's great. From $15 million to $250,000, quite a span, but lots of different needs and things that can help our citizens with their quality of life and improve it in a number of ways. I see we have some hands raised. I'm going to kind of do a chair prerogative, though, and I wanted to add a couple of things I was going to say on this one, just to make it as brief as possible. So I know I have certainly expressed concerns over restrooms in public restrooms in general and at other times. Though I think those concerns, as we've talked about it, and with this project in particular, even though it costs more money for this public permanent restroom to operate than it does to use Senecans, it's not that much more. And given its location and safety through design approach, that helps address some of my typical concerns as well. I think the potential of being able to move future irrigation forward if we choose to do it, but setting the stage for that to make it a little easier is also an excellent idea. And while arguably you could say the environmental effects are different with restrooms, but in fact, whether it's a permanent restroom or a Senecan, everything goes to the treatment facility to get appropriately handled. So with all of those things though in mind, I think perhaps it is time for us to think about a restroom and hopefully have a successful application at the current apple orchard, given its scale and position and such. So I know I've shared those concerns with my colleagues before, and I wanted to chat a little bit, or just let you know about thinking about this one a little differently, also because it is our early scoring indications are very helpful when it has the restroom included. With that, I'm going to go around and I'll start with Councilmember Keel and then go to Councilmember McCluskey. Councilmember Keel.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I've got a few questions for Jack, and thank you for your report, Jack. I really very much appreciate it, and I agree with the mayor. I mean, you and your team, however many of those are, you guys are really, really busy, and we appreciate it. The first question is the PSRC funds that we're applying for. Are those are federal fund dollars too, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And when we talked a lot about, all the new money, the BIL that's out there and all the other federal dollars that are coming. Is there any, I didn't hear you make mention of any of that. I mean, it seemed like there's more categorical dollars that are coming through the state or coming through PSRC. I don't know where the RCO dollars are coming from. I'm sure that might be coming from the feds too as well. I'm not sure, but all this new appropriated dollars that we're getting from the feds, you didn't speak much about that at all.
Yeah, somewhat by design, just because it was so long, I was trying to truncate a bit. But I believe that the dollars from the Representative Strickland's office have that's associated with some of those funds, and then some of the other funding we are still. Those are out. Some of the other ones are out a little further, and we are looking at even for some of those getting additional, maybe some consultant help to help us track down some more of those. But that's kind of coming attraction, I guess, more to come.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, that's where I was going with that, right? Is that we were talking about, getting some consultants help to look at that whole law and how we can afford it to get access to it. And then also, we didn't mention, and I'm assuming, and maybe you can verify for me, that our whole northeast corner of our city that's not on the sewer, we've been talking about sewering that area, and we've got dollars set aside to bring some of the major, pipes there. But then we've got to get that last mile to the homes, and we're talking about working with the consultants and using those federal dollars. Are you still thinking about that? Is that still in the works?
Yeah, so we have we have the sewer program being developed by Gray and Osborne to take advantage of those ARPA grant funds that we've received, and then in addition, and some of that it's going to be we're taking that a little slower because we want to see what the county's final program is, because they are developing a match program, and so we'd like to take advantage of their program to try to leverage our funds to stretch it a bit. The last I've heard is we will not really hear anything on that until maybe June on what the county program is going to be like, and then it may be a while after that before it's actually enacted. But yeah, that's definitely still in the works.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Keel. And Councilmember Plesky, your turn, of course.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad you had that change of heart in the restroom. I think it's due time that we have a restroom at Curran, and for all the reasons that you had mentioned in your report out this evening, it certainly is a parks beginning of our meeting, isn't it? Mr. Swindell reminded us that it is also Earth Day. I believe that was on April 22nd. So, it's big happening to appreciate our Earth and to also protect it and conserve it. And I also want to give big kudos and a shout out to the United for Up that came with enlightening us about our inclusive playground structures. I think that is essential and important going forward, especially as we're growing in population, that there'll be more and more people needing other type of accessibility to enjoy our parks, not only for the playground structures, but for all the other amenities that we have as well. I know that is typically on the forefront to a certain degree, but maybe we can expand and broaden with some of their ideas or designs that they have seen. Bainbridge Island is a forerunner on inclusivity. I've been at some of their parks. Also, parks at Bainbridge Island are destination stops. They have a ferry, they have a big pirate ship, and so I love those parks there, and people go there just for to enjoy the park. So, and I like their design standards that they have there. So, the other thing I would like is Mr. Gwynn. This is the third time he came to the council and reported to us about his accessibility challenges within our city. And so I would like to give him kudos for coming back tonight, not only talking about his accessibility in University Place, but also that he's a leader now at taking charge in an organization. And I hope he continues to come to our council and enlightens us about how we can do better. My grandkids are not physically challenged. I'm not. And so I try to have that lens, but until you live in somebody's shoes, you just don't know. So I always really encourage as a policy leader in the city of University Place that I become more and more enlightened to some of the needs that it's not in my purview, and I would love to have them in my purview as make some of these policy decisions going forward. I'd like to give Jack and his team big kudos for including a lot of park stuff. Yay! I'm so excited. And also, I would like to also bring back our legislative proposal. I think that has been got a little bit of dust on that Mr. Councilmember Fleming and I have have proposed as far as the parks maintenance, because there are parks in our city that not only needs infrastructure enhancement as per some of our comments tonight, but also maintenance in our parks to continue the quality standards that we have, because I believe our parks are also and can continue to be destination stops for people within the region. And I like that vision to be destination stops, not only for the citizens of UP, but for others as well. And so if Mayor, if you can be so kind to bring that back on the agenda, at a time that Councilmember Fleming can be present, so that we could talk a little more about that, and the PowerPoint presentation that Mr. Cooper diligently had put together for us could be presented at that time as well.
Very good. Thank you for that.
For that, I am once again ecstatic also about the Day Island Bridge, for reasons that everybody knows. Look at my background. So I'll end my comments there.
Thank you, Councilmember McCluskey. Well, speaking of comments, looks like we've got around for those hands. Let's take Councilmember comments as well. So, and Councilmember Keel, you start us off with that too.
Great, thank you. I just a couple things. AWC and Sound Transit, we are in the process of looking for CEOs for both of those organizations. All of my friends are saying, I'm the kiss, I end up being the president and the chair of both of those, and now they're looking for new CEOs. So I get ribbed about that all the time. So we are getting very close to naming a new CEO of AWC, and we are about, I don't know, 2-3 steps away from that same step for Sound Transit. So that's what I'll stop there. There's a lot going on, but I'll just end my comments there.
Thank you. But I know you're keeping the executive recruiting profession busy, so thank you for that. Let's see, Councilmember Wood, do you have some comments?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor. First, just for the record, I do support the idea of an inclusive playground. I would love to see more on where it could be put and how it would be, funded and all that. I think a playground like that is an opportunity for a community project, not just a community playground, where the whole community comes together and does a public-private, some kind of partnership. I think something like that is that kind of community building event like we did over at the Chambers Playground is special for a community. And I think an approach like that would be special as well if we tried it for this. I'd also like to thank Jack and team for the work he's doing. And like Councilmember McCluskey pointed out, I am partial to the grant work they're doing on 67th, because that's my side of the city. So thank you for what you're doing over there. That concludes my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Wood. And then Councilmember McCluskey, anything further to add?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I am going to attend the PCRC meeting this Thursday as an alternate. They're talking about the population allocation. So I haven't heard from Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa, but just in case, we don't have 2 people at PCRC during this discussion, I will be there. I'll also be there to report out on the Zoo Trek Authority meeting as well. So just to let council know, if I don't need to be an alternate there, that's all good. I'll be there just in case. Okay? The other, so report out on the Zoo Trek Authority meeting for my city council is that the PCRC granted my proposal to have an alternate to the Zoo Trek Authority, because sometimes, we were lacking a quorum. So that would be Shannon Reynolds. She is a council member from the city of Faircrest. There is a question that I will take to the PCRC because she represents small cities and towns. And so to take the vote, if a large city was in absence, could she legally vote for that? And I'm not sure if that's the case, unless it's probably authorized by the body of PCRC. So anyway, that's the question there. They have, the Zutreck Authority has almost formalized their vision and their mission statement. Their vision statement is, we envision a future where all people in our community are engaged in the care and protection of nature. The mission deriving that will be awakening a connection to wildlife with everyone in the Pacific Northwest. So that took a heck of a lot of time. A consultant was paid, and that's the outcome, and it's moving down the train on that. And that will align with their core values of passion, belonging, collaboration, courage, compassion, and trust. The cash flow and sales tax, we're all probably interested in that, are going up every month beyond expectations, so they're excited about that. And they'll be looking at possibly hiring on some more staff if that continues, because we're down to core staff to take care of the primarily the animals during COVID. They will keep their virtual accessibility and educational component, because they found out that doing so, they have become a global community as well, which is really cool to hear. The zoo will open up their nature playground for little explorers, which means they're going to be investigating the little critters, bugs and things of that nature. That's helpful to our environment and our gardens. And so primarily be to the 3 to 5-year-old range, and we'll have some other interactive and tactile things in there as well for them. So it's called Build and Play in the Natural Environment. The aquarium is now empty, and they're looking at the structural soundness of it to see if what they can do to rebuild it so they can refill it and bring the fish back. So all the fish has been taken out, and they're in great shape right now. So obviously they're in good hands. And some of the shows that we were accustomed to previously before COVID will be brought back for the end of spring and going forward. Northwest Track was a very short presentation. The trams are on track for delivery. The station is on track, and they're looking to opening that up pretty soon. The trams are from Portugal, and they're really cool. They have a huge sunroof on them, so people can see, all around them, and they're quiet because they're all electric. So the animals will not know we're there, right? They peruse through. So the next page is SHAPE. I went to the SHAPE meeting beginning of this month, and there is a letter that they're putting together for our state legislature that is inclusive of not to require like the local government to plan and accommodate availability for affordable housing, but to encourage. So they're using the word encourage a lot more now, which I'm excited about, and we should be very hopeful. That's in their DNA, is also in the DNA of the new director that has taken charge, and he is interested in visiting the city of University Place and getting the feel for our community and the flavor and our values so that he can make better comprehensive decisions in his job. Also in the letter was how to limit evictions without increasing and shifting the burden to the landlords, and I added taxpayers to that. And then what about, and then the tax reform to bring about for services and transitioning for the people that are going into retirement, you know, looking at some of those expenses, that, you know, with the rising property taxes, to see if they can, you know, bring some buffers on that so that they can ensure that if you're a senior going into your retirement, you can hopefully stay in the place that you work so hard to attain, which I think is really cool and fair. Encouraging more missing middle housing projects, because that's kind of stymied in the legislature right now. And so they're hopeful that that will be coming back. You know, it was tabled, you know, they didn't axe it, so they're thinking that with the next session that they will bring that back for further discussion with some of their legislative proposals that came through. And then also hopefully that for the state to look at a housing trust, a fund, so that to help augment some of the things that will encourage the cities to implement and support. And there's other things I could add to that, but that's kind of the summary of a lot of things that we discussed. You know, it was an hour and a half meeting, but, you know, we went over because that's a big topic to discuss. And so that's my report out for this evening, Mayor, and thank you all for your patience.
Well, Councilmember McCluskey, thank you for your diligence there, and we've been staying busy, of course. Councilmember Fleming, would you like to make any comments tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually wasn't going to say anything, but I have to just make some quick comments. And one was, I was super impressed with the presentations tonight for those who came to talk about the project that's being proposed for the parks. Didn't really know a lot about it before we started. I'd heard the rumors, I've heard the conversations, but I was really highly impressed by what information was provided by the presenters tonight. I wanted to make one minor correction. Someone had made the comment that if we approve this as a city council, this will be the first project in the city of Tacoma of its kind. Since we're on the record always and we're on the camera, I want to be really clear. We're not the city of Tacoma, we're the city of University Place. The other thing I wanted to comment on is, again, kudos to Mr. Eklund and his team. You know, you hear about projects, you know, throughout the year that we're working on in the city, but when you look at what he and his team has put together to really enhance with some amenities to this city and just continue building on a great tradition that we have here, I'm excited. I know it may be an inconvenience to some folks as we get into the construction season for the city, but I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to end up with something we can all be very proud of. So, you know, thank you to what he had to say tonight. Lots of information there, lots to digest for those who are watching, but I think this is a huge step in the right direction. And then lastly, just putting the plug in to Councilmember McCluskey's earlier comments, along with parks construction comes parks maintenance. And I know she's put the request in that we put that back on the table and start really massaging that one. And I do endorse that and hope that, Mr. Mayor, you'll follow through on that one. Short of that, it's a great day to be in the city of University Place. So thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Fleming. Appreciate the comments and good observations as always. Councilmember Belisi, would you like to make any comments this evening?
No comments this evening, Mayor.
All righty, well, thank you. Well, I have a few remarks I wanted to make. I'll try and make them fairly brief. We still have a good deal of agenda left in our study session. But before we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about music in the square. And that program is returning. And starting with the July 20th Wednesday, and through the rest of the Wednesdays in July and all the Wednesdays in August. We will have music back in the square with some notable fun groups coming in. I'm going to save those for another night. But that starts from 6 to 8 every Wednesday, and it'll be nice to bring that back into our community. So I'm excited for that. I'm also, of course, very excited about Duck Days, and it's coming back for June 4th. That's traditional first Saturday, and we'll have our parade. And folks are getting lined up with that. We do have some details that, for the council members and members of the public that might be participating in the parade. The parade gathering area is going to be different, and there'll be more information about the details. Just know it's different at this point, but it'll be a little different location. But we're excited about the parade, and we are going to be featuring our high school champions. Yes, the Curtis champions. I had the pleasure of attending the Night of Champions at Curtis High School in the auditorium, where they went through the achievements of these young men and women, and it was just amazing and pretty darn awesome. So from the state banners that they brought back that will hang in the rafters of the Curtis schools forever, to many individual accomplishments, including one gentleman on the swim team who has shattered, I believe, 3 state records. And if you think about that in COVID times, that's pretty amazing, I think. But there were many individual accomplishments and a long list of champions for us. We'll get a chance to see those that are available at Duck Days with the parade. We wanted to also remind folks this Saturday, in terms of council, we have our retreat coming up. It's going to be at the council chambers. It will not be sitting at our dais, though. We're going to sit on at a table, or several tables, as the case may be. But because there's some logistics issues, that's going to be the best spot for us, and we'll have that underway. We'll talk some more about that as we wrap up this evening, but I just wanted to touch on that for the moment. I've been busy with a couple of other things. I also attended the Curtis High School Career and Resource Career Volunteer Resource Center or event, and had a fun time with that. Had some jobs in local government that I could show young people. Here's what we have, and really here's what we have at University Place at your city. So staff had provided copies of some job descriptions that we have open, and it was fun to share that with folks. I also had the opportunity to represent the city at for a few days. Actually, it was 5 days. One of our local businesses used a portion of their space to host the Philippine consulate. And we had the Consulate General's office here in University Place, serving Philippine nationals from quite a wide area. And they had hundreds of people coming in to take advantage of those services, being here as opposed to having to travel to San Francisco. I had the joy of participating in a welcoming event, and it was very special for me. They were kind enough to provide us with some products from the Philippines, and I'll be sharing those with you at the retreat Saturday. So you can see what you get a chance to see something interesting and different there. I think that's probably enough, and just to be able to get us moving on, and we'll move into our study session. And unless anybody needs a second chance, if not, we'll close the regular session and open the study session and get ready to start learning about our council rule update. So, and I think City Attorney Matt Kaser is here for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Matt Kaser, your city attorney. I'm going to do what I can to make up for some lost time here. I don't have a snazzy PowerPoint, unfortunately, but what I do have are just as exciting are some council rules update. As council may recall, back in January, at your January retreat, council had the opportunity to undertake its once every 2-year update and discussion of the council rules. Council, in the course of the discussion, identified 4 areas for council rule changes. Those have since been reduced to proposed drafts and are before you tonight for comment and for study. In the interest of brevity, I just want to highlight those for you tonight, and I'm going to just kind of take them a little scattershot for you. The 4 that we had talked about were touching on remote participation and any potential changes to the remote participation rules, excused absences and changes to our excused absence policy, council comments, and how should we go about council comments, any changes to the council comment rule, and then changes to the selection of the finance committee chair. Again, in the interest of brevity, I'll take the last 3 first, just because they seem to be more of the low-hanging fruit, and then I'll come back and talk about the remote participation component. On the excused absences, council had expressed a desire to sort of streamline the manner in which an absence might be excused. Our current process at the beginning of the meeting, if council member's absence, the mayor or chair will say, can I have a motion to excuse council member so-and-so, just as you did tonight with Mayor Pro Tem. The proposed change would still retain that, but keep that as an alternative. Instead, that a council member who knows that they're going to be absent would notify the mayor, or if the mayor is not available, the city manager or the city clerk, and say, hey, I'm going to be out. During roll call, the city clerk would say, council member so-and-so excused. There'd still be a safety valve built into the rule, so that way if a council member knew, hey, wait a second, I'm not sure that's a valid reason, say, hey, I'd ask to reconsider the excused absence for that council member. Council could still take it up. They still have supervisory authority. The current process is still retained as an alternative in the event that that council member, the would-be absent council member, can't get a hold of the mayor, the manager, or the city clerk, but could get a hold of somebody else. So that way another council member could say, hey, council member so-and-so got a hold of me. They're going to be absent. I'll make the motion. So that process is still preserved, but the process I outlined is the idea that council had expressed some idea going forward. The council comments portion, there had been expressed a desire on the part of council to sort of include more in the course of council comments. I will share with council, I surveyed probably about 24 different council rules from other jurisdictions across the state. There's not a lot out there in terms of how other councils mind their council rules in terms of what they expect on that portion of the agenda. I crafted some language from a jurisdiction I found out in Eastern Washington to get to what I believe that the council's core concern was. We want to hear more about what our colleagues are doing with regards to other boards, commissions, activities, that sort of thing. And that language is reflected in the accompanying memo. The third change was the change in the finance committee chair selection process. Council had expressed a desire to change the finance committee chair, rather than has a standalone chair, make that the mayor pro tem. That change, while the resolution adopting the rules is not part of the packet, the idea being that that change would take effect on December 31st of next year. So those are the 3 easy changes. The last change relates to remote participation. Since the retreat, there's 2 developments that I just want to highlight for the benefit of council that shade how the proposed rule change goes just a little bit. The first change of note is that the legislature passed legislation and they had an emergency clause in there. That legislation specifically addresses remote meetings. On one hand, this particular legislation clarifies a lot of ambiguities that had previously existed with the Open Public Meetings Act. There had been a lot of concern under the OPMA, can you do a remote meeting? The legislature said, yes, you can. A lot of jurisdictions have been doing it for 2 years, so they clarified a lot of the process. They've also included a lot of what I would call good things in terms of encouraging access to public participation. They encourage local governments to keep, for example, video recordings of the meetings available for a 6-month period. They encourage local governments to take public comment on matters before final votes are taken, that sort of thing. The good news is all of that stuff that they're encouraging, we're already doing. The other development of note, and this touches on something that was just discussed during council comments, is that you may recall at the outset of the pandemic, the governor issued a series of proclamations suspending portions of the OPMA. Under the current version of those proclamations, and I checked earlier in the meeting, and my assistant city attorney here wants to say, those provisions are still in effect. What those provisions require is that all meetings must be done virtually and the in-person component is optional. We've been doing that in the hybrid format, but that's just important to build in mind. So in looking at the rule changes, trying to figure out, all right, how can we go with still this uncertain piece, but recognizing at some point these restrictions are going to be lifted, knowing that this legislation is sort of going to be the new baseline. So the rule change that's presented to you tonight essentially takes the new statutory language, pulls it out of the statute, and puts it in the council rule, and calls it there. Council had expressed a desire, and then that takes care of that part. The bigger question for council that council still had the opportunity to discuss, and I think the rule addresses it, but I'll leave that to the members of the council, was still at what point do individual council members still have the strong desire to make sure that you're participating in person versus on the dais and that sort of thing. The rule change in practice recognizes if there's an emergency situation you're required to, you can go in person, we have members participating, or you can participate remotely. But for that proclamation, there would still be a requirement to participate in person. I know I went very fast as I'm trying to make up time. Mindful of that, I'm happy to answer questions. So I'll turn it back to council.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Matt. And thank you for the quick rundown, though, of those items. Councilmember McCluskey, your hand is up. I'm guessing you have a question. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kaiser, one point of clarification that you mentioned in regards to the public in attendance. So going forward, we will always maintain a hybrid platform. Is that what I'm understanding? So that our citizens can engage remotely for the accessibility, because it is my understanding that it does enhance attendance, public comment, and accessibility for people otherwise who could not come to the council.
Are you referring to the proposed rule change or the proposed statutory change?
I'm trying to find the clarification in both.
Okay. The rule change doesn't say we're going to go hybrid or we're going to have a hybrid component. The statute doesn't say that either. However, what the statute seems to be saying is, look, you guys have been doing this. We're going to provide the clarity under the OPMA. I would not be surprised if I had the crystal ball to say at some point they're going to start saying, look, you need to go. You need to start going remote. You need to have the remote participation component. The one piece it does mandate that you do need to be aware of is that if you're taking public comment in person, as council did tonight, and that there's somebody out there that says, look, I am unable to participate in person, but I still want to provide comment, you have to provide an opportunity for that individual to participate in some way, shape, or form and provide their comment remotely. And we do that through our hybrid platform, whether it's video, whether it's the call-in number, that's, but you have to provide that opportunity.
All right. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? So I have one for the group. Are you ready to move this on to a regular meeting, or do you want another study opportunity? Anybody have strong feelings? Okay, Councilmember Keel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm ready to move it on for consideration. I would ask when we do that if our city manager and city attorney could give us the clarity like they did, but a little slower that next time. That'd be great.
Thank you. Good suggestion. All right, then we'll move this onto the agenda at the next opportunity. With that, we're going to move us all along to talk about fee adjustments, and Leslie Bladesdale is going to help us with that, perhaps with Kevin Brisky as well.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Leslie Bladesdale, Finance Director, and joining me tonight is Kevin Brisky from our Community and Economic Development Department. Tonight we're talking about fee schedule reviews. We have various fee types that are approved by council, and pursuant to our budget guidelines, we review these fees at least every biennium. You'll recall that in December, we came to you and adjusted administrative fees, animal control fees, facility rentals, and telecom fees. Then tonight, we're presenting proposed adjustments to the development services fees. They currently have 7 different types of fees, which include building permits, engineering, fire code, land use, mechanical, and plumbing code fees. Kevin Brisky is going to go through a PowerPoint tonight explaining his proposed adjustments. They're proposing adjustments to the building permit fees and land use fees at this time. And additionally, when this comes back for approval, we will need to determine when we want if approved, when we want those fees changes to go into effect. Would they go into effect immediately after adoption, or would we set a date in the future allowing some adjustment for the local builders? So at this point, I'll turn it over to Kevin so he can talk about his review of the fees.
Thank you. Kevin Brisky here with the Community and Economic Development Department. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I have a fairly short PowerPoint I'd like to share to go over these changes. Hope everybody can see that.
I can.
Great, thank you. And that's a 7-slide one, so I'll try to go through this and keep us on time here. As Leslie had mentioned, you know, we looked at different proposed options and different proposed fees. And what I would like to do is through this PowerPoint is just go over the proposed fees we'd like to change, ones we would are proposing no changes, reasons to consider changes, and I've got a couple slides with some comparisons and examples for review. As mentioned, we have 7 different fee types in the Development Services Department. We're proposing no changes to development engineering fees, fire code fees, mechanical code fees, miscellaneous plumbing fee, miscellaneous building fees, and plumbing code fees. Development engineering fees, these include your site development permits, your right-of-way permits. So anytime you're doing like dirt work for a project or work in the right-of-way. Fire code fees, these would be like for fire suppression systems. Mechanical fees, examples would be if you were replacing your home furnace or HVAC system. Plumbing fees as well, like for replacing a hot water heater. So no proposed changes to any of those fees. The proposed fee changes that we'd be looking at considering would be a 5% increase to all land use fees, and this would be a rounded to the nearest whole dollar. Adopting the 2015 ICE International Code Council Building Valuation Data Table. This equates to approximately a 5% increase for building permit fees. Currently, the city is using a valuation table based on the 2006 International Code Council Building Valuation Table. We're also have a couple of new fees that I'd like to talk about under proposed new fees here. Telecommunications eligible facilities request. If you remember, the City Council adopted some new telecommunications ordinance. It's either in the fall or late summer last year. And there is an eligible facilities now request option for the telecom companies when they do tower modifications. And for that request, we currently do not have a fee associated with that. One of the things we have to do with that now is to provide public notice to neighbors and post the site with some signage. You know, these fees, you know, would be paid for by the large telecom companies when they come in to modify a tower. So we feel that getting a small fee onto that, so it's not passed on to the rest of the taxpayers to cover some of those services, it would be useful. And also a site plan review fee. A proposal for new primary structures would be a $150 review, and for accessory structures, these would be garages of that nature, and additions to primary structures, a $75 fee. This fee is essentially for the review of zoning compliance. So this would be to review for
compliance with zoning setbacks required for buildings, the height required, maximum height required, review of that. A lot of this work goes in ahead of time on these projects. So when the public or a builder comes in and is speaking with our planners, they gather a lot of this information, and there's a lot of back and forth that goes on before they are able to actually draw up their construction drawings to get all of this information. And so there's a lot of staff time invested in this, not only beforehand, but then also once the permit comes in for the zoning compliance. And some reasons to consider these proposed fee changes. The last adjustment for building permit fees was actually done back in 2006. As I had mentioned, the building valuation table we currently use is from the International Code Council numbers from 2006. And so it's been, what is that, about 16 years now since we've adjusted those fees. The land use fees were last adjusted in 2009, so quite a while ago on those as well. And, you know, over time, without, you know, providing some subtle adjustments, it was slowly increasing the burden on existing taxpayers to cover the cost of new development with inflation occurring. And also, most permits now are paid with credit cards, and there's obviously fees associated with credit card use. We want to, you know, we're trying to encourage people to use credit cards just out of not only convenience for them, but also for, you know, convenience for us as a city to process these. And with our new permit tracking software, and when we go to full online for applying for the permits through our interface with our website, they will just be entering a credit card number there to pay for their fees if they choose to, which most like land use fees, they do that. We had somebody come in, just for an example, or they didn't come in, they did it over the phone actually. For the Narrows Urban Village project, they used a credit card to pay a $60,000 fee for their mechanical permit for all the buildings. So it's a convenience for the applicants and for the city, but there are fees associated with that to the city. And a couple other things to consider here from 2006 versus now. Yeah, as I'm sure everybody's aware, obviously the CPI has increased over 40% since 2006. And back in 2006, the average price of a new construction single family home, average sale price, was approximately $550,000. And currently, when we did looked at Redfin and Zillow and Realtor.com, over the last 12 months, excluding some very high for sale ones, sale prices, the average sale price has been $890,000. And with this, the percent back in 2006 of the sale price versus the permit fee was 0.79% of the sale price. And currently, under the current sale price of $890,000, the percent of the building permit versus that sale price is 0.49%. So only half a percent. And now that's a 38% reduction from, you know, to the developer, builder, or homeowner from 2006 to now. And with the proposed 5% increase, we'd have a proposed percent of the building permit would be 0.53% of the sale price. And this equates to still approximately a 33% reduction in the cost of the building permit versus the sale price from 2006 to now. So over time, even with this small increase, over time, it's still, you know, the cost of doing business in University Place has gone down from 2006 to now versus the sale price of new homes. And just wanted to show the valuation table. I don't, you know, this, don't want to get into every single one of these, but trying to do some comparison here from the International Code Council valuation table. There's a ton of different building types. These three are most common ones. The center one here, 5B, residential single family construction, is our most common building type. Currently, we have a valuation per square foot of 106. That's the 2006 valuation. We're proposing to go to 112 and that is the 2015 ICC valuation table. And here I've got Gig Harbor for a comparison. They're at 120. And I listed off some other ones here: Kent, Lakewood, Linwood, Pierce County, Tacoma. One thing I wanted to point out, that what most jurisdictions do is they use the most current valuation from the International Code Council. They use the most current valuation table. And the current valuation table that just came out in February is 150. So what most jurisdictions out there do is they've passed their ordinances that their valuation tables just go up every year as the International Code Council comes out with their new valuation table, and then the fees go up accordingly with that valuation table. The city, we haven't chose to do that. We're choosing to choose the 2015 valuation table, which would be that roughly 5-ish% increase there. So. Going over just a kind of, we did a quick comparison on constructing a 2,500 square foot home. And as you can see, Tacoma has the highest number here at 12,000 roughly for their building permit. Gig Harbor's at 5,800, Lakewood at 4,890. University Place, we're currently at $4,321. And then with the proposed increase to the building permit with using the 2015 ICC table, that would be an increase of $229. And then if you add in the site plan review fee of $150, it'd be a $379 increase to a building permit for a 2,500 square foot home. And that, over 16 years, that averages out to be about $23 a year if we average it out, since we haven't increased it since 2006. And I'd also like to point out that even at $4,700 at the proposed fee, we're still under Lakewood, Gig Harbor, Tacoma. And as you saw with those previous valuation tables, we're under Pierce County and most all the other surrounding jurisdictions that all use the current ICC table. These two numbers are the number from Lakewood and Tacoma. When we did this calculation, it was under the old ICC table from last year. So these numbers are actually lower than what they are if we recalculated under the ICC table that just came out at $150 a square foot. So, and any questions on any of this stuff? I only have one more slide.
Yes, if I may, Kevin, I have one for you, which is just to ask the obvious. Why don't we go to the most current fee schedule? Many other jurisdictions choose to do that.
That's a good question. One option, when the fees were adjusted back in 2006, what the city did was we basically took the ICC table from 2006 and used that and created our own table out of that. What we're proposing with this increase is we just adopt the 2015 by reference. So that cleans up, kind of makes it easier for us in the future to adopt a new table based off the ICC table. We felt that jumping from the 2006 all the way to the 2022, you're basically going from, for single family, you're going from 106 valuation to 150 valuation. That was going to be maybe a little bit too steep of an instant increase, let's say. Where we were increasing the permit fee by $379. That was going to be an increase of over $900 to do that. So we felt that might have been a little much at once. Now it could be phased in if the council would like to look at that as an option.
That could be an option, I suppose, if we choose to go down that path. And then your revenues from our building fees, building permitting, and the other various permits are treated as general fund. They are general fund dollars. Okay.
They are dedicated to the Development Services Department, so they're Development Services revenue. And Leslie can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I do not believe they go into the general fund. What the increase would do, I looked at our projections, and one thing, if the council would choose to go with this, 5% roughly increase. it would bring in an additional revenue of anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 depending on the year and the projects coming in, which then offsets revenue needing to be supplemented by the general fund. So that's one way to look at it. Is over time the general fund has been having to supplement the development services reviews. This would help alleviate some of that.
So, Leslie, general fund or dedicated revenue, how do you describe it?
Development services is a general fund function. They have their own department codes, so those revenues go into the development services department so that we can track and monitor fee supported services versus non-fee supported services, because there are some audit things we have to do to make sure that those monies are being spent appropriately. But you are correct, officially they are a general fund function and it is considered general fund monies.
Okay, and then I know Councilmember Wood has a question too, but before I go there, let me touch on another subject, which is on your site plan review. So for $150 for a residential structure, you verify that it's going to meet zoning code requirements, essentially. Is that a formal decision? Can they look at that and go, I paid $150, but at least I know that what I'm doing meets your code?
It would be correct, yes. It would be part of the building permit review. So it would not be a separate application. It would come in and be reviewed with the building permit, and then a separate fee associated with the building permit used to review it based on that. What I was trying to, I guess, just mention was that a lot of the work done on those reviews is done before they even apply for the permit, because they need that information ahead of time before they can design and draw their plans.
Yeah, it's certainly. But knowing that the city is making a decision is important in the development process there. So, all right, good. Well, with that, I'm going to go to Councilmember Wood, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My comment was as far as approaching, using or mirroring the ICC fees like some of our neighbor cities and jurisdictions do. I support that idea. And what I would like to see for written into code is not just saying we're going to mirror the 2015 ICC valuation, that we're also going to then take, 3 to 5 years to stair-step our way into meeting the current ICC valuation. So we give the community and builders and developers time to react, but we also just put it right into code so they know what's coming, when it's coming, and can prepare accordingly.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember McCluskey.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm contemplating, as Councilmember Wood had suggested, doing the incremental steps, but before that consideration, I would like, if we know how much is being taken from the general fund to make up the difference, because we have lower permitting fees.
I believe.
Sorry, I was trying to look that up real quick. It ranges by year. As you know, the development services fees, most of the fees come in before a lot of the work is done. We've averaged anywhere from $400,000 to $700,000 a year in the past several years to supplement the fee-supported services that aren't covered by the current fees.
Okay. Well, with that information, I concur with Councilmember Wood. Let's save our general fund. And the other question I have, Mr. Brisky, you mentioned in one of the slides about the credit card fee. Is that now a pass-through fee that we're doing to the applicants, or is that a proposed change?
It's not a proposed change. Currently, it's not a pass-through fee currently. I was just wanting to bring up that, over the last 10 years, we've just seen credit card usage go up by a lot. And it's not something I think I don't want to discourage it, because since we're going to the new permit tracking software we've just been implementing, and we're going to be going live soon, credit cards are going to be used even more. I want to try to keep it as streamlined as possible for people to pay for their permits.
Mm-hmm. because that will cut into some of the profits that we're looking to regain. And I'm wondering how much that is. That's all a percentage. Is it 3%?
I'll go ahead and take this, Kevin. It can average between 2.5% to 3%, depending on the card vendor, whether it's MasterCard, Visa, American Express. Kevin and I did discuss this, and you can look at it both ways, that 2.5% to 3% on credit cards, or you look at the staff time for taking a check, scanning a check, depositing a check, taking the check to the bank. So really, it's, you have expenses either way you go, whether you're taking checks and cash or credit cards. The online system of them paying with the credit cards will save staff time all around, from their department to the finance department. That money automatically goes into our bank. We just have to make sure we get the right amount. So,
okay, so it's offset is what you're saying. Okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? So let me.
And I did have one more slide. I'm sorry, I probably stopped too soon, but I wanted to make sure people could ask questions as I was going along. Unless if you have another question, fire away. If not, I've got one last slide for the land use comparisons.
Let's go for it.
Thank you. Land use comparisons. For the land use fees, I pulled some comparisons for short plats, preliminary and final subdivisions, SEPA, and variances. And I don't know if you remember, but back in 2009, when we did our current fees for these, we did a time tracking, I guess. We tracked all our time for these fees and tried to come up with a dollar amount for full cost recovery. And that was kind of shown at a level that we felt would it was too high to achieve full cost recovery on these for the amount of time taken. So the fees that we have now, were based on kind of an average to not do full cost recovery, but about maybe half of cost recovery for these. So our land use fees, are fairly in line with kind of like our short plats are a little higher than the average of some of the surrounding properties. Our preliminary plats are a little bit higher. Final plats are fairly close. Our SEPA checklist from the average is actually less for a SEPA review. And our variances for our major variance, which we don't do very many of those. Most of our variances are minor variances, you can see, and they're only $825, so they're a pretty small amount. The proposed increases we have for at 5% increase for a short plat is $344. So on a 4-lot short plat, that's less than $100 a lot for an increase. The preliminary plat, it's $782. For the final plat, it'd be a $378 increase. And for a SEPA checklist, it's a $68 increase, and you can see the major variance $169 and minor variance only a $41 increase. So fairly small increases at the 5%, considering that for example, land values have probably doubled since 2009. So the percent of the cost to do the subdivision versus the land value is halved in that time from what it is now. So we just felt a small increase here would be justified based on land values currently. And the other thing to consider on these is the amount of time. There's no easy lots left to develop in University Place, as everybody knows. So the amount of time that it takes for us to do the reviews for the short plats and the preliminary plats for the public hearings that are involved. We try to provide great customer service and service to the neighborhood. There's a lot of questions that usually come in from the neighbors, and we are very responsive and try to provide all the information to all the surrounding neighbors on what's going on and what's going to occur during the process. And that takes a lot of time, but I think it's a time well served to the community. Another process that we have that I always like to point out that we do not charge for, which is kind of under land use, but it's kind of under everything. Our pre-application process, our TRC process that we have here at the city. Most places charge for those. fees, and the city of University Place has not charged for that. And I'm not recommending we do. I think it's a great service to the development community and also just even individual homeowners looking to do a complex addition to their house that they may want to set up a pre-application meeting for. And we do probably between 25 and 45 of those a year. And this year we're actually on pace to do quite a bit more than normal. And so I just wanted to always bring that up. That's a service we provide out there that most jurisdictions charge for, and we do not.
Okay, Kevin, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm going to go to Councilmember Fleming and then Councilmember Keel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Kevin, thank you for that presentation this evening. You answered a lot of questions that I had when you and I first talked about these proposals. You know, I'm typically not enamored with raising fees just to keep up with the Joneses or keep up with the cities adjacent to us. Just because others do it doesn't really justify why we should. But I am impressed that we need to recover cost as we look at these fees. So my question is this: if we go with this proposed stair step that is being put on the table, does that recover cost? Or does that exceed the cost? In other words, will we be making money, or are we just breaking even to cover our costs? That's my first question. The second is, when we talk about what our costs are, that's kind of a nebulous term. So I'm curious as to what constitutes our cost when we're looking at these fees. And my question is, do you have something that shows what that breakdown is?
I don't believe I have something that would show an exact breakdown of what that is. And it would vary a little bit depending if you're talking on building permit versus a short plat or versus a SEPA review. I've kind of looked at, fees in three ways. You could, as a jurisdiction, we could charge nothing, right? That doesn't eliminate our responsibilities for life, safety, zoning requirements, all the reviews that we have to do by not only our local laws, but state and federal laws. So we can charge nothing, and then that puts the onus on most of the taxpayers out there to offset that. We could charge full cost recovery for everything, which I don't believe that would be pretty difficult to do. If we tried to go full cost recovery, we'd probably stop any development from occurring, and that would go from any new house to potentially even people wanting to build a garage because the permit fee would be so much. We've always tried to take kind of a balanced approach and get into that 40 to 60 recovery range depending on the project. And each project is so unique, it's kind of hard to determine, what the exact cost is. Some short plats are quicker to review than others. Some take much longer to review, but the fee's the same. So we've kind of tried to average it out to get, into that 40 to 60 cost recovery range.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
There we go. Councilmember Keel.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And my question is very similar to Councilmember Fleming's around the cost. And again, I thank you for the detail that you gave us. But again, my questions are going to be around that same type of deal where I want to make sure that we are getting the cost that we need, but not doing it so much so that it's putting an extra burden on business and citizens for payment. And when I look at the list that you threw up there, our costs were toward the higher end of things. And so you explained a little bit of it about the fact that, we were running out of land and staff has to get more involved into the work of that. But I would, like Councilmember Fleming, I would be really interested in understanding how we get to the number, right? So that there's some way that as a council member I can explain to people like, okay, here's how we got to the number, and this is why it is. Because absent that, people look at, the $5,000 number or whatever it is, 4,000, whatever the number was, and they say, wow, that's a lot of money. And then they can, especially if they can go to other places in our area that are that's less, right? And so we can have the best conversation, but if our number's bigger, the other numbers are smaller, and we don't have a good reason why that is, you lose the argument, right? You lose the discussion. And so having reasons for that and how we can get to the number. And I get I'm not trying to say every penny and we're trying to do full cost recovery and we're trying to do we're not trying to turn, Leslie's discipline on this, practice totally, but we need to have some kind of ballpark kind of way of how we got there.
Okay. And I think, Councilmember, I think you were talking mostly about the land use fees.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Because the building fees were clearly were
low.
Low. So,
yeah. All right. So we've had a pretty good discussion on this. There's an idea on the table of stair stepping and potentially. I would like to suggest that we line this back up for another study session as it fits on the calendar. And in that study session, we take a look at what would a stair step to bring it in over a series of certain number of years to be in line with the current valuation or fee schedules that ICC has. Would that be of interest to council? Okay, good enough. Great, let's do that. And thank you, Kevin, and thanks for those details. We'll look forward to one more time here. Chances are, since this is part of our next year's budget, we have a little bit of time to work on this and get it right. With that, though, we can get a special guest appearance on the coming up next with David Swindell and helping us. And Kevin, thank you. David, good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
We're going to get a chance to talk about buildable lands in about 24 minutes before we need a meeting extension.
Okay, well, I hope I can get through this. I should be able to. I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see if this works here. So presenting, let's see, share. Oh, there it is. Didn't work, did it?
It's up. I can see that.
Oh, it is up? Okay. All right. So the staff report, it's on a different screen. I apologize. I was looking at this one. So today it's not buildable lands, but it's the form-based code.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Back in 2020, you adopted a form-based code for the city, and when you did that, we already recognized that we're going to use this for a while, and we're going to find issues with it. We anticipated that, so we put a planning commission work plan together that included a chance to review the form-based code after a year of implementation, and sure enough, we did find just a few things that we felt that we needed to be changed for clarification, as well as things that were left out. When we put the form-based code into our current zoning code, we had to move a lot of things around, and in the process, there were some things that were inadvertently deleted or modified and or moved. So this set of proposed amendments addresses those as well. The first amendment we're going to talk about involves craft production facilities. And this type of use refers to the production of arts and crafts, food and beverages with on-site production and assembly of goods that are associated with crafts. What happened was during the moving things around in the zoning code, it was defined as a commercial use category but in the use table, it ended up being an industrial use category. So the Planning Commission discussed this. They really felt that this was more of a commercial type of use rather than industrial use. And so we moved things around and redefined it as a commercial use. And the Planning Commission also suggested that it be allowed outright in the, as a commercial use and require a conditional use permit in the mixed use neighborhood, mixed use urban, and mixed use center zones. So those would be where we would tend to have, they might have a greater impact with when they're co-located with residential uses. I'm going to stop there for a minute before I go on to the next amendment. If there's any questions regarding this, or would you prefer me to just continue?
Let's see, just quickly, I see Councilmember McCluskey has her hand up. Please, go ahead, Councilmember.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Swindell, the production of the, what you just mentioned was a question that I had on my list. So I see industrial and commercial as being both. Just depends on what type of facility is proposed. You know, you could create, you know, a craft as somebody who's a welder, or versus some other one who is into the crafts of doing, you know, different types of garments, which is less intrusive. So how, and I know you covered some things about noise and fumes, so how are we going to further identify that if they come in as a craft policy, you know, a woodworker, or establishing retrofitting of automobiles, you know, for those types of crafts and hobbies?
Well, we do have a auto repair use category, which is separate than this craft production facilities. The way that we've dealt with these types of questions in the past is whether or not something, a use as a variety of potential, how should I say, assortment of activities. And we have in the past categorized the different types by levels. Level 1, for example, would be maybe something like ceramic art or candle making or custom jewelry, something that's really pretty benign as far as impacts. And then a level 2 might be something more impactful. For like example, you suggested maybe, you know, somebody welding art pieces together. And that would obviously produce a lot more smoke and odor and impact to, say, adjacent residential areas. So that's one thing you could recommend, or you could ask for. We can define them in level 1 or 2 and possibly allow them outright, as opposed to with a conditional use permit and as a level 1, but as a level 2 require the conditional use permit. That's the sort of thing that we do to address different levels of impact on different types of uses.
Yeah, I like that proposal with the different levels. I think to protect the quality of livability, if it's going to be commingled in with residential living. So that would be my recommendation on that to the council. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Okay.
Is there any other questions before I move on?
Nope. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, the next amendment is to do with setbacks. In our zoning code, we require in the residential areas, as you know, setbacks for front yards, side yards, and rear yards. But there are some existing single-family residential buildings, land uses that are currently in our mixed-use zones. They're legal non-conforming, if you would, and they're allowed to expand. What we ran into is that we had our design standards and our form-based codes that did not address the setbacks for existing single-family homes. So, you know, somebody could come in and say, we want to put an addition on our house, and there's no setback requirement, or the setback requirement is 0 from the street, as we would want a commercial building to be built right up to the road. So the second amendment is to add to the density and dimension tables a note that indicates that if you are, if we're talking about a single family residential or, you know, maybe a duplex, that the setbacks that apply to the same type of structures in the R1 zone apply in the mixed use zones in the form-based code. So that takes care of that. We did have an addition. Somebody came with an addition and we said, look at this, we don't have a setback as we would normally have. So this just adds that, which was an oversight. The next has to do with glazing. Currently, the ground floor glazing requirement only applies in the storefront overlay zone. And those are areas that, for example, along Bridgeport Way between 35th and 44th, along 27th Street, portions of 27th Street in Mildred, and then in front of the Grandview Plaza area. Otherwise, you could come in and we do require that those areas be designed for storefronts, but for eventual occupancy by a commercial use. But when they go demand, no longer as much a great demand, they can use it temporarily as a for the residential uses. Typically what we'll get is offices and recreation facilities or common space for the residential. But there's, in those instances, there's no glazing requirement. So we have suggesting that a minimum of the 64 or 60% of ground floor glazing be located in the storefront designated areas, and that shall be non-reflective, transparent glazing. The next section is within the multiplex building type. We found that the original setback was only 5 feet, and that does not provide enough room to for some of the frontage types that are allowed or encouraged within the form-based code. So the proposal is to increase that to a 10-foot setback allowance. Now, they could do a 5-foot if they chose, but that would be setbacks 10 to 20 feet. Okay, so it would be a minimum of 10 feet and up to 20 feet, and that will be allowed to put the frontage type associated with that building type.
Excuse me, David, could you illustrate that just briefly? Just what is not being allowed as an example?
For example, let's see, the storefront setbacks. So I might, there's a stoop or a, you know, as you know what a stoop is. So you could probably get a stoop within 5 feet, or, you know, it'd be better to have 10, but a forecourt type or a dooryard where you have a small yard in front of the door and then combined with a stoop or a porch, those types of frontage improvements, it'd be hard to put them within a 5-foot setback.
Thank you, that helps.
The form-based code, as you know, included a street grid with the major arterials and minor arterials and includes design standards for those streetscapes. We have a map, and then we had a table, and they didn't align. So where the problem was is yeah, on 35, oh, I'm sorry, this must be an old staff report because I had another table here. Excuse me for that. But there was it's identified on the map, that section of 35th Street between Bridgeport and Larson Lane is identified and currently a collector arterial without on-street parking. It had been classified as an arterial street with on-street parking in the table, but not on the map. So we decided to list it as it appears on the map and as it is constructed today. It's interesting when we did the use types that are allowed in the form-based code area, we combined a lot of uses. For example, under administrative services or government services, I'm going to get down to that portion. Excuse me. So administrative and professional office, oh no, that's not the one I want to use. These are blank. Wonder what that happened. I should have checked the staff report that was here earlier. I apologize for this, but for example, I think you can see that these blank spaces are actually types of uses that were deleted and combined. So for government services, we had jails as a use type. We had libraries as a use type separately, and we combined them all into just the government services. But what we didn't do is we didn't take those uses that we previously had out of our parking standards. So they were still in the parking standards, but they weren't in the use code anymore. So we had to make the parking requirements consistent with the use lists of use types. So again, I'll have to bring this back to you. Looks like I'm going to bring back a proposal for the levels of craft facilities. So you may want to put this back on the agenda. And that concludes my staff report.
All right, very good. Councilmember Plesky, I think you have a hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Swindell, I believe on what came in my packet, it didn't have the fancy grid going through it, but it did have what you were just alluding to, you know, taking out the jail and the postal service. And so it wasn't in that part of it, if that's accurate and up to date, which into your comment, it appears to be. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I appreciate that. So you did have the cross out and uses for the parking. Okay, that's interesting.
We're actually good there, it looks like. Okay.
Yeah, but it didn't have the grid component. You know, it wasn't in that particular format. So.
All right.
Yeah. So I did get that, and I did see it. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have about 7 minutes left. I also have a closing item I want to touch on. It's going to take 5 minutes. Councilmember Keel, you're next up, though, and then Councilmember Fleming.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. David, thanks for your report. Every time I hear about form-based code, I'm so excited about the potential. And as we continue to tweak it and implement it, you know, how beautiful it's going to, I believe it's going to make our city look over time and be sustained that way. The question I have, and we don't have to answer it tonight, but when the next time we get together, I'd love to have an answer from you. There are those times when other government agencies will come through our city with eminent domain powers and tear up our stuff to do their stuff.
Yep.
Okay, and so I'm just wondering, how do we handle that? You know, what are some things we can do to get ahead of that, and think about that and come back with something for us next time.
Okay.
Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David, I just want to say, typically when I look at code changes, revisions, proposals, what have you, I tend to look at those with a jaundiced eye, as you know.
I know.
And very rarely impressed. But I got to tell you, tonight, you know, when I'm criticizing for things I don't like, I'm pretty vocal, but I need to bring balance to that and give it justice. I'm impressed with all your recommendations tonight. I really like where you're going with that, and just wanted to commend you for that.
Thank
So
you very
thank
much. And I'll come back with a more complete staff report next time.
We have it, but that's good. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fleming. Good comment. Councilmember McCluskey.
All right. Thank you again, Mayor. I would also, I was very encouraged when I was reading the Planning Commission report back to our City Council in regards that they were taking the health and well-being policy as they went through all these revisions into the form-based code. And I would like to see a little more language to be the inclusivity, the diversity, the accessibility part to that too. So as our city changes over time, that those components are being considered with as we do adjustments to our form-based code moving forward. But yeah. I was very thankful, and I was looking for that dialogue and that feedback from the Planning Commission, and I've asked a question about that on some other issues, and they reached out to the Health Department on that, and so that's very encouraging and being proactive. So you can bring my comments back to the Planning Commission and tell them that I am thanking them for that, and I applaud them.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Well, Council, I don't see any further hands. It's been a good discussion. We're going to have another touch at this as in a study session in the future. I do have, we have just a few minutes left in our scheduled time. We're scheduled to end at 9. I had one other item I wanted to bring to you to get some instant feedback. So as we all know, we have a retreat coming up on Saturday. Staff was pointing out, as I was discussing that retreat with them this morning, or this afternoon, regardless, that the COVID numbers in our county have once again climbed, and we have a new reporting period coming out tomorrow. But the information we have today is 2 weeks old and has a 10% increase over where we were in the number of hospitalizations. Excuse me, I'm probably explaining this poorly, but the point is, essentially the metric that is used, Pierce County COVID cases, it's up about 10%. So the question gets to be for our retreat is, do you want to do that in person? That's what we have scheduled. Do you want to go to hybrid? Do you want to go to remote? We were, as you heard earlier tonight, and we've heard frequently, we're required to do electronic or what I'm thinking is hybrid, regardless. And from my perspective, I think we're far enough. I think we're far enough along, and I think this is such a all too common issue these days that I would just as soon roll forward as in person. And people can take whatever mitigating measures, such as masking or distancing, they wish to in the meeting, or they can attend the meeting electronically. So I don't want to discourage that. But I do want to bring the issue to you and just see if there's any initial thoughts. Councilmember McCluskey.
Well, I would, as you said, give the option, but I would like to know more about the social distancing that we're doing at our in-person meeting. We know that, we have council members and others that, travel and go other places. I, for one, is in the fold of in the school district with all the kiddos, and I mask up when I go in there. There is currently a large uptick in the school district for people substitution requests, teachers being out, and the schools are having a hard time keeping up with the teacher substitutions because they're out. So it is ticking up in that regards. We probably are on the cusp of that, and so I like to err on the side of caution. I for one have really don't want to get COVID for obvious reasons. Who wants to get sick? Either way, whatever it is, right? And so I would that would be, I'm kind of I'm not quite totally sure whether I want to be in person or not, but I will certainly do that if there is social distancing, and I will be masked wearing that, and that as if we have food or whatever, that we have the precautionary things as well too. So,
all right.
You understand what I'm saying? And
I think I do, and it's a very individual choice, and there's,
right.
People make individual decisions on this, and I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I'm just, want you to be aware of it and a change in the environment. And I also need to tell you, it's 9 o'clock, and it's time to get a meeting extension for, I'm going to say 10 minutes, I hope for 5. So
I will move extension 10 minutes, hope for 5.
Thank you. Is there a second to extend for 10 minutes? Let's see. Any of our remaining council members?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. So we have a motion for an extension. All those in favor of extending the meeting for 10 minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. We extend till 9:10. And so back to the discussion. Councilmember Keel, your hand is up.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, I like what you said and how you laid it out. Everything where people have the option. I think we're in the age of hybrid, and I think that's the answer, right? So that people can pick and choose. They want to be there, if they want to wear a mask or not, or distance. I mean, it's totally up to. I like the notion. It's totally up to the individual, and if they want to stay home and look at it. Over electronic, then we should have that capability as well. So I plan to be there. I plan to have my mask on. I plan to sit 6 feet away from everybody. I got my shots. So I'm that's my plan. But I think it's prudent and wise and thoughtful to have the options for people.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Keel. Councilmember Wood.
Just my plan right now mirrors Councilmember Keel's. Thank you, Mayor, by the way. However, I would appreciate if when the new numbers come out tomorrow, when they come out, if those could be distributed to the council so we can make an informed decision come Saturday.
Certainly, I believe that city staff will get that done. Lisa is typically the one that's gathering that information for us. So, thank you. Any other comments on this? Okay, good enough. Well, wanted to get to your attention, and so I have done that. We have a few more minutes in the meeting. So I'm going to take one or two of them and just say, Councilmember Fleming, I too was quite impressed with our inclusive playground presentation. Very well done, very informative. Certainly has me thinking about that. Sorry I didn't include that in the earlier comments, but all right. If there's anything else before we bring this meeting to a close, I'm not sure if we're early or late, but anyhow.
If I can just jump on there, I love the playground deal too as well. I mean, as many of you know, I have a daughter that's in a wheelchair. She's 33. She's got cerebral palsy, and my wife and I have for 30 years in the city been advocates for curb cuts. I mean, my wife is the one that got curb cuts in Green First, so many years ago. And so we've always been in that battle. So I'm all for it. And I appreciate that, the people bringing it forward. My last comment is for the retreat, I may be a little bit late. I'll be out of town Friday, and I'll be coming back into town. So, I may be a few minutes late getting there.
All right, we'll do our best, but we'll be on. We'll start on time and look forward to you being there as when your schedule allows. So, yeah. Good. Thank you. Anything else before we call it? Been a productive night, and appreciate that, everyone. Good to see everyone, and look forward to Saturday. How are we? Master otherwise. All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.